Why is it that I talk about the soul and why it matters so much when so many unsoulful things are happening around the world? Well, that's really exactly why I'm doing it, is we have to start looking at the world from a different place. Because if you haven't noticed, the world is not working well right now. It is just not functioning well. There's so much going on around us that we are displeased about, unhappy about, we feel like we have no control about, and yet it's all because we're looking from the outside in. We are functioning from the outside in. So I want to tell you a little story about something that happened this weekend at an all-day retreat that I run. I run it every year. It's called Color My Soul Vision Day. And what I do during that retreat is I teach people how to go within, how to kind of reach very deeply into themselves and listen to what their innermost ally, their innermost self has to say about what it thinks you need to work on rather than what your brain says you should work on. And it was such a beautiful example of what happens in the world, because this is the first year that we were situated in the middle of the building that I hold the retreat in. We had an event on one side and another event on one side. There were both celebrations of some sort. And right in the middle of one of the meditations, it was probably 5 minutes into the meditation. Over on this side, I start hearing bang, 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 bang. And what they were doing is they were popping the balloons that they had. They probably had at least 100 balloons they had brought in, but they were popping them so they didn't have to figure out how to get them back in their cars and get them home. And so I have a room full of people that are sitting there with their eyes closed, and I had just gotten them to this deeper level, and we hear this banging. And I kind of smirked, I kind of glanced and opened my eyes, and about 4 or 5 of them were smirking as well, thinking, oh gosh, here we go. But what was beautiful is I just kind of went on and I said, okay, just like everyday life, we have to learn how to go within, regardless of what it is that is trying to distract us from the outside. And again, the beautiful thing that happened is everybody got back in that space, regardless of the bang, bang, banging that happened, probably went on for about 5 minutes. But it was one of those things where that is what we need to start doing. We have to start going to that deepest sense of who we are in order to cope with all the noise and all the BS that's going on around us, in order to anchor ourselves within our innermost selves again. You know, I say this over and over again. Ancient cultures used to do this. This is basically, they lived and breathed the soul. This is where they were. They didn't have to think about, oh yeah, I haven't checked in with my soul today. They just did. And, you know, I talk about this over and over again, and I could be blue in the face. I could blend it in this wall behind me by just talking about the soul and trying to get people to wake up to that innermost part of themselves, because it shows up in every single aspect of who we are. And for those of you who know my soul health model, there are 10 branches of the human condition that I talk about all the time that completely displays how the soul functions, but we only in most cases look at it from the human side. So I'm going to go through these branches very quickly, and then I'm going to work in this whole idea of ancient wisdom and why it is that it is so important to bring this back into modern times. In other words, applying it to modern times. So you have the physical branch. How many times have you gotten sick because you've been stressed? How many times is there some ailment in your body, some ache or pain in your body that actually is pretty well connected to something that has happened in your life external to your body? So the soul shows up to get our attention most commonly in our bodies. So if we're not dealing with something, then it's going to show up. It's going to find its way into the body. So you have physical symptoms, you have mind-body connection kinds of symptoms. There's tons of research and tons of books out there on this kind of thing. Psychologically speaking, being a psychologist and having done mental health work for 38 years, ooh, I don't know where the 80 came from, but it probably feels like that. But it's that whole idea of, oh gosh, how many of our mental health concerns, how many of the things that bring people to therapy are actually soul-based, whether it is soul-based interactions that we have with others. In other words, karmic reactions, difficult kinds of things. How much of our own mental health, anxiety or depression are actually from the soul, whether it comes from past life experiences that we've carried over into this life. You know, ancestral healing is a huge buzzword right now. How much of our current disruption in our life is coming from that? So mental health, psychological health has all to do with the soul. We go to social health. Again, those karmic relationships that happen, those kind of chance reactions that we have with other people, and these long-term kinds of learning lessons that we have with people as well. Interpersonally, the dynamics that we have with people oftentimes are coming from things that have shown up in the past, whether it's a past life dynamic that's unfinished, whether it's something that in this lifetime we are here to learn and evolve beyond, but we haven't learned how to do it. So those interpersonal kinds of reactions. Then we go into the intellectual occupational. How many people are still trying to find their life's purpose? How many people are just struggling to figure out what they're supposed to do with their lives? That is soul-based. That's not just human-based. It's a matter of what your soul path tells you. It's a matter of what your internal wisdom is or is not telling you in order to get where you need to be. Environmentally, our environment works with us all the time. What about those signs from spirit? What about those, when I say signs from spirit, whether it's an animal sighting, whether it's a cloud in the sky that you see something in that reminds you of something, whether it is a storm that comes and you're supposed to be paying attention to, or a tree falls, and what does that mean for you? So you have the environmental pieces of that. Ancient cultures used to look at the environment all the time and integrate that into how they lived. So that's another part. What about financial? The financial branch of health. I talk about this all the time. People think about this whole idea of manifesting and, oh, if I only manifested hard enough, I'd win that lottery or I'd, have those millions of dollars. The truth is, not everybody is supposed to be a millionaire. Not everybody is supposed to have a ton of money because they wouldn't be learning the lessons they're supposed to learn as they're rambling through life trying to figure out how to pay the bills. So, and what about those who have millions of dollars and aren't learning anything? So it's not like life would be better if the financial piece of a person's life is, extraordinary, because they still are human beings who have different kinds of soul-based concerns. Then we go into the spiritual. Of course, the soul is about spiritual, but how many people are turning away from churches right now? If you look at the statistics, over the last 35, 40 years, there has been a mass exodus away from churches, formalized religion, because people are not getting what they need. Then we go into church hurt, and then we go into what I call God trauma, things that basically are woven into our life and our experiences that we're supposed to learn from and evolve from. And what about those tragedies that happen that cause spiritual awakenings, cause us to realize there are angels or ascended beings out there, cause us to realize, wow, things really are connected, cause us to believe in something that we would have never believed in before because we thought basically everything was science-based, which it is not. What about the recreational part of life? What about how is it that we recreate? Do we allow ourselves? And, I tell people the soul's most natural state is joy and contentment. So how is it that we are constantly looking at what's going to bring us joy? And sometimes we are looking in the wrong places, whether it's through food or whether it's through shopping or whether it's through gambling or whether it's through sex or whatever it might be. We are looking from the outside in, even to satisfy our souls. It does not work. Look at the world. We have over 8.6 billion people on this planet. How many of them are happy? Not very many of them. And, last but not least, the sexual branch of health. So sexuality has all to do with the soul, but we have, quote, modernized sex to the point where we have disconnected from our sacred selves. And so, we've got all these different levels of things going on. And I will add this, as far as those of you who have had sexual trauma, is that to me, having done therapy work for 38 years, doing the soul work for over a couple decades, is this idea basically of realizing that when we have sexual trauma, it hits us at the deepest level of any other kind of trauma. And yes, it is stored in our neurological system. It is stored in our energetic system, but it goes down to the soul level. Now, if you don't understand that, I'm going to be putting out more videos and more webinars and things like that to help people understand this. But the thing is, the soul shows up in everything. It shows up in every aspect of life. My SoulHealth Scholar certifications, toward the end of that first round that I ran earlier, mid last year, the participants started saying, oh my gosh, it shows up in everything. And these are seasoned professionals that were doing their work and working along. And I knew it showed up in everything, but everybody was like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. The soul shows up in everything. So why is it the soul matters? It's because we have to get back to understanding there's something deeper going on. If you look at your own life, look at how much you do to please others from the outside in. Look at how much image consciousness there is in your life, that you're more concerned. You automatically go to what people are thinking, how you're going to present to people, what you're going to show up for other people rather than showing up for yourself. So, we live in this society that lives so much from the outside in Whereas ancient cultures did the opposite. They lived from the inside out, and that is what helped them work better together. That is what helped them communicate better. That's what had that communal living be really a key aspect of their lives. That's why there was so much more peace in the world. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't peace in the world, or unpeaceful things going on in the world, but think about it. There has been the war between good and evil for as long as we know. But think about it. It's those who have become detached or disconnected from their souls that are causing everything that is unpeaceful. Those are the people that have broken souls. Now, I had a conversation with someone last week. He said, "Oh, I don't believe the souls can be broken." Well, he also doesn't do mental health work. He also doesn't do soul work. The whole idea is I can see people's souls. I can see energetically whether they are fractured or broken or chipped or damaged or wounded or bruised or whatever. And yes, it is the human condition that does that. But basically, we have to heal our souls. We have to get down to that deepest level. That is another reason why the soul matters. For those of you who have been doing therapy work for years and you're still not feeling like you can function without being discomforted on a regular basis, for those of you who are having constant health problems, for those of you who are having constant financial problems or having a really hard time knowing what you're supposed to do in the world, or you're having relationship issues, I can guarantee you that the answer lies with the soul. The soul is everywhere. It is everything. I know I'm sounding preachy, but I wanted to say that because it's like we have to start living from the inside out again. Again, if you look at, well, I'm going to give you a couple examples. If you look at how much distress is going on in the world, whether it's personal distress or global distress, and you really start looking at it, it's because people are not connected with their innermost selves. People are not grounded in themselves. People are not looking at life from the inside out. They are definitely living for the sake of others. They're living for the sake of their society or their family or whatever it might be that does not have to do with themselves. Now, I'm not saying disconnect from all of those things. What I'm saying is learn how to live through your soul so you can live better within your family, better within society, better within the world in general. And I know this can sound very preachy the way I'm looking at this, but I wanted to just bring this out to you because the whole idea of, we have left the soul so far behind. We have left all of these different aspects of who we are so far behind to keep up with the Joneses. And now we have AI, and AI does not have a soul. There are people that are using AI to do soul work, and it's so disturbing because AI does not have a soul. Does it have good ideas? Yes, because it's compilated all of this different kind of information from the world and put it into something that can be spit out through a computer. But you still have to make decisions for yourself. So in essence, now I'm thinking about it, AI is the epitome of not living through your soul. It is the epitome of living distance from your soul and not sitting to make decisions for yourself, not sitting to come up with what feels right for you. So we are in this freight train. It's like the bullet train. That's what I'm trying to say. The bullet train effect of how living from the outside is negatively impacting who we are. Do I think this is all going to implode? Absolutely. I absolutely believe it's going to implode at some point. That is why I keep speaking this, why I keep looking at this from that perspective. Now, I'm also going to kind of slow this video down a minute and bring you back to what's happening in our country right now, on a positive note. I think it's 80 days. I think this is their 80th day. So there's this group of monks that is basically walking 2,300 miles across the country to raise awareness about peace, bring peace to the world, show how peaceful living is, show how it is that people can just raise consciousness and band together and go on this mission. And a colleague brought this to my attention about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And I was enamored by it immediately. I'm like, oh, wow, I'm going to watch this and see this. And, they have a Facebook page and they have an Instagram page, which makes me laugh because of the fact that, again, here's this modern living kind of thing, but they're trying to bring the soul back. I think that is why it is so moving for me to see these updates about the monks and these peace talks they're doing and how people are being so kind to them. And even in conservative states that basically there's so much kindness being shown to them. And I noticed today their update is that they're staying at a Baptist church tonight for their where they're going to be staying overnight. And I'm thinking, why is it Why is it that religions fight with each other, but then they're willing to welcome in one of the other religions? I don't get it. I don't get it. Stop fighting. It's this whole idea of start living through the soul, folks. But I'm going to go back to the monks. The monks are walking with a dog, or they had been walking with a dog, and this dog was getting all of this attention and all of these treats and all these new sweaters and all this love and kindness. And I have to admit, I was even more enamored by the dog than I was the the nun or the monks, because of the fact that it brought it together. You could see the connection between the lead monk and this dog who rescued the dog from India and found a way to get him back here. You could see the connection. You could see the connection that this dog had with anybody he came across. And then yesterday they took him out of the walk because he had surgery on one of his legs. And it really, I can't say it broke my heart. It just deflated me in that way. And I literally was having a hard time with it yesterday. But I was realizing it's because we are looking for light outside of us. We are looking at all the time for something outside of us to bring us life, to bring us light, to bring us enjoyment. That is not a bad thing as long as it's a healthy thing. But on the other hand, our light is within us. That soul part is within us. And why is it that we are not accessing that? Why are we not tuning inward so that we can share that light of each one of us with the world? So I think about little Aloka, that dog, and how much light and brightness he brought. In fact, if I'm remembering correctly, his name, Aloka, Aloka, is light. That is the word they named him, and it's because he brings light. And so if we think about that little symbol of light, that little dog, why is it that we aren't accessing our own inner light? Why is it that we are taking everything outside of us and thinking it's going to make us happy? How is it that we can start bringing that within? Now, again, I know I'm probably sounding a little preachy here, but it's that whole idea of I'm so passionate about people connecting with themselves again. And going back to the Color My Soul participants on Saturday, they all came in about a little over half of them had been to it before, and they're annual members. They come back every year, and the other half hadn't been there. And their friends had told them, and they were just kind of curious about it. And by the end, everybody is just in this peaceful, soulful place, very excited, very enlightened, kind of motivated about doing this year, doing change, and being in this space that they can actually take themselves further. It's because I help them connect with their inner light. And that is why the soul matters. We have to start connecting with that inner light. And that is why I teach professionals. How is it that they can help their clients? So whether it's a medical practitioner, a mental health practitioner, or a coach, how is it that they can help their clients understand the soul more and tap into that light? Same thing with the public. How is it that I can teach them on a regular basis how to touch base with their souls? And this is also why I'm talking a lot about the year of soulful, living soulfully this year. Is how is it that we can bring that soul back? So ancient wisdom for the modern soul. We have to start at least bringing what we know of the mindset and the sense of beingness that ancient cultures lived through, bring that into modern day and figure out how to weave it into modern life despite all of the distractions, despite the discomfort, and despite all of the lack of health that is out there. That is why I keep doing what I'm doing. That is why I keep sometimes saying the same thing over and over and over again, to get in there, to crack a seal, to help you realize that we've got to get to that place. Now, that means lots of things, and that means different things for different people. So I encourage you to think about all of those 10 branches I mentioned and think about how is it that I need to heal or resolve something within each one of those branches, because the lighter we become, the more we do that human healing, the more we peel off those layers and resolve whatever's there, the more inner light that we have. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges in current life, is that people aren't doing their healing work fully. And those who are kind of leaving the others behind and don't want much to do with the others, because it's hard for us as we evolve and as we lighten our load to be able to be in the same place as a lot of this chaos and a lot of this discomfort. So if you want to evolve, this is the point. We have to get back to our souls. And for years, I've said the soul will be our salvation. And I'm starting to understand why I said that years back, because of what I'm seeing in everyday life. If I let myself, I could get very depressed about what's going on in the world, but that is one of the reasons why I stay contained in my own little world to basically really look at this soul aspect. So I know this, again, this could have sounded a little preachy. I just want people to understand that there's so much more out there. There's so much more light. There's so much more lightness in the world if we can get to that space. So if you have comments, please leave them. If you have insights, please leave them. But also just work on being in touch with that inner ally. Have a wonderful day.